What's going on? Hope all is well. In today's video, I'm gonna walk you through 3 separate slides. I'm gonna share my screen here in just a second to break down the power of learning through repetition, pushing against resistance, and why this works, and why the first time we go over pieces of information, we don't get it all, and why the second time we read a book or watch a movie or watch a podcast or anything that has a continuous release of information, start to finish, let's say an hour-long piece of content, why if you watch it or read it again, that second experience is completely different than the first experience, and you see things or you learn things or you notice things that you didn't the first time. Now, commonly this is taught by telling people that you're a different person the next time you go through this information, which is possible, meaning you've evolved, you've learned different things, you've had different life experiences, but this is not really what's happening here. I want to talk about what's called thought drifting, and Bob Proctor taught me this years ago. I'm going to share this to you in a visual representation so you can understand this, but thought drifting is very important to understand when we're in sales and communication, to understand if the other side's listening to us or if they're just nodding their head and daydreaming. It's very important to understand how we learn correctly. Is it better to read 50 books one time or 10 books 5 times? They're the best 10 books to read, if that makes sense. Let me share my screen here real quick, guys. This can make a lot of sense. We're gonna go through 1, 2, 3 slides in a row. Each one's gonna build off the other one. And by the end of this, you're gonna go, wow, I get it. And you're gonna understand communication, sales, and learning a lot better. Let's dig into it. Here's number 1. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you run a business, you're definitely in sales and communication as well. And I wanna break down the big difference between hearing and listening and conversion rates. We all know the difference when someone's sitting in front of us, nodding along, but nothing's happening in their head because they have what's called thought drift going on, or they're occupying their mind with their own thoughts, not what you're talking about. Then the opposite side is they're looking at you nodding along and they're in deep concentration and deep focus on what you're saying, and they're engaged in the conversation. So I'm gonna give you a breakdown visually over 3 slides here real quick, which is gonna help you understand why we need to go over things multiple times in a presentation when we're doing a sales presentation, or when we're learning ourselves, why we need to go over things multiple times through repetition, or reading the same book multiple times, or watching the same podcast multiple times. So what you're looking at right here, guys, is called thought drifting, a visual understanding of why we learn through repetition. Now, if you look at this real quick, what this graphic represents is if you start on the left side, it's at 0, and if you end on the right side, it's at 60 minutes. The arrows are showing continuous information as if you hit play on a YouTube video, or you sat down in front of a presentation, or you went to a seminar, and once the button hits go, for 60 minutes, that information is going to continuously flow, no matter what happens anywhere in the world, to other people in the audience, to yourself, what's happening in your mind and your thoughts. It's just going to go straight 0 minutes to 60 minutes straight, and nothing else is going to change. There's going to be no pauses, and nothing else is going to happen. Now let's go on to slide 2, and this is going to make sense as we go into this one. Now, what I'm going to do for you real quick is I'm going to explain the slide and then the next one and tie all 3 together to give you the aha moment. So if you're struggling in business, or you have agents or employees in your company, they're struggling with sales, communication, or conversion rates, by the end of this, they're going to exactly know what to do going forward, and they're going to know where their problems are and why they need to understand repetition when it comes to educating themselves or educating others in the sales process. It's so important to understand that on the slide, what you're looking at is 2 different lines. That bottom line is the same from the first slide, same graphic, a continuous piece of information. It could be you reading a book nonstop. It could be a podcast. It could be a speech on stage. It does not matter. Someone's going to hit play, and for 60 minutes straight, information is going to flow to you. Now, what line 2 represents is the line above. It's going to have breaks in that line. Now, the white line above on line 2 is going to represent your conscious focus or your concentration on what's being said. This is when you're actually paying attention to the speaker, or you're actually paying attention to the movie, and you're engaged in what's actually being said. Now, what's going to happen is something is going to come into that picture, or come into the movie, or come through the book that you're reading, or someone's going to say something, and it's going to trigger you, and it's going to cause what's called a thought drift. You're going to go off into your own mind and drift off into your own consciousness, meaning you're only thinking about what's going on inside your own head, not what's being said in front of you or being played around you and whatever you're trying to consume, movie, speech, etc. So what this means is you're paying attention, something triggered this for you, and you went off in your own mind. And then when that line starts again, this is when you came out of your own mind and came back into the present moment of awareness and focus and concentration. Now you're going to pay attention to what the speaker has to say again, or what's going on in the movie again. And then something else is going to happen to trigger another thought drift, and you're going to go off in your own mind, and you have what's called thought occupation. You're occupying your thoughts with something else that's not being delivered to you, which is the speaker in front of you talking, if that makes sense. And it's going to go back and forth, back and forth. This is why most people would say that you can only retain maybe 15 to 17% of information, is what a lot of studies I look at say. And so when we go back over something again, this last slide is going to bring it all together and make a lot of sense. This is what it's going to look like. The key to retaining anything or growing anything in life is repetition. And what this shows here real quick on line 3 is the second time you're consuming the piece of information. And this is the example where repetition and understanding repetition is really going to sink home with you guys, because let's take a look at this in detail. That bottom line is the same as both 2 sides before, the continuous information flowing. Line 2, that middle line up there, is showing where you're paying attention and when you're off thought drifting and you're in your own mind. And that third line, the one at the top, is the line of repetition. This is the second time you've seen the movie, the second time you've listened to the podcast or the YouTube video. What's going to happen is if you look at line 1, continuous information. Line 2, you're only paying attention in certain areas. But if you look at line 3, this is the repetition. Look at where that line overlaps. That first time when you went off to a thought drift, the second time you did not. This is why you read something or hear something or understand something differently than the first time, because the first time you read the book or watched the movie, you were thought drifting at that part. And the second time is it's very difficult to thought drift at the same time you did the first time. So what's going to happen here is you're not going to be thought drifting. You're actually paying attention. You're at a moment of focus and awareness. So you're going to see something differently the second time. And then you're going to drift at a different part. And then you're going to come back to level focus. And you're going to constantly, every time you go through something through repetition, pick up all the spots that you did not the first time and plug it all in together and have a better understanding of what you're reading or what you just watched, if that makes sense. So this is why when you cram something and when you're studying for a test over and over and over, we cram repetition real fast, then it sinks home and we get it, right? So when you're communicating with someone in sales, you need to go over it and over it and over it. Your product, your service, your business model, whatever it is, because one time, a quick one-on-one surface level walkthrough is not going to be good enough to communicate for conversion. You need to go over things through repetition so they get it. When you educate yourself, you want to take the best piece of information, the best books, the best podcasts, the best seminars, and go over it and over it and over it and learn through repetition. I hope this helps guys understand why people are nodding but not paying attention, and also why you learn something differently or pick up something different the second time you go over something. But this is important to understand for business communication and conversion, and also how to train individuals in your business. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you learned something. I hope this helps, and go follow Bob Proctor.